Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Perry Municipal Authority, November 18th, 2019 at 6:15. Roll call, please.
Coldarn.
Here.
Bond. Dilbeck.
Here.
Ahern.
Here.
Marshall. White.
Here.
Morrell. Wines.
Here.
Stroller.
Here. Thank you. I do declare a quorum. This evening, Councilman Ahern will give the invocation.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's pray today. Heavenly Father, we gather tonight to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that's placed before us this evening, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. And most importantly, may we always bring honor and glory to you. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brian. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. We have one item, the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. Roll call, please.
Coldarn.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item number 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the PMA agenda. Seeing none. Item 5, proclamation, accommodations, reports, and inquiries by the governing body. Seeing none. Item 6, consider approval of the PMA 2020 regular meeting schedule. Under tab 6, we got a schedule of our meetings for this next year. There's just I think 3 dates that they've changed for different holidays.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Coldarn.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines. Yes. Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item 7, any new business that needs to be talked about under the PMA this evening. Item 8, motion on adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Coldarn.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, I'm sorry.
How about that?
Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Perry City Council, November 18th, 2019 at 6:18. Roll call, please.
Coldarn.
Here.
Bond. Dilbeck.
Here.
Ahern.
Here.
Marshall. White.
Here.
Morrell. Wines.
Here.
Stroller.
Here, thank you. Item 1 is the consent, I do declare a quorum. Item 1 is the consent agenda. There's quite a list there. We can approve them as they're presented, or if someone would like to talk about one, we can do that too.
Motion to approve all items A through I listed on the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Coldarn.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item number 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the city agenda. Mr. McNabb, would you like to come forward and state your name?
I'm Gary McNabb, live at 431 Elm. I'd like to speak to you about item number 14 on the thing, discussion of solid waste waiver issue. Give you a little background. My wife and I live at 431 Elm. We've been there since '75. We bought 2 properties east of our house. One of them was 409 Elm and then 411 Elm. I'm a simple man, like simple things. Sometimes dealing with the city is not simple. So, I'm coming before you to let you know that at 411 Elm, it was rented and owned by Bill and Betty Price. They tried to evict the renters that were there, and it took them a long time. The city shut off services. the people lived in the house for 2 more weeks. So you can imagine, with no services, no water, no anything. Jeannie and I, later on, we decided that we wanted to control the people we live next door. So we offered a price to Betty, and she accepted. So they cut off, and they lived in it for 2 more weeks. We could not, and we did not, me and my wife did not want to bear the cost that it was going to take to fix up the house. So the house basically is not lived in. I received a notice from the city that it hadn't had electric for over 2 years that I remember, and got a notice from the city that it needed to have something done, either with the electric, had a front porch that had a hole in it. So I decided we hooked the electric up. I signed the waiver at the time, and I think it was for a year, to remove the garbage from my bill. And here, the last bill that I got, I had garbage back on my bill for $18.83. I'm coming before you tonight to say I'm not going to pay $18.83 because I'm not getting the service, because I don't want to pay for a service I'm not getting. And I got charged $18.83 and $5 for the ambulance fee. Nobody lives there. So,
Gary, pardon me a minute, did your house have an ambulance fee on it also?
I'm sorry?
The bill that came to your residence where you live, was there an ambulance fee on that bill also?
No. Well, yeah, the one at 411.
Yes.
But nothing for 409.
Okay.
And I'll get to 409 here in a little bit, I hope. Being a simple person again, I just thought, I could go to the city manager, it would be removed from my bill, and then it's done. I signed that one waiver, and when I talked to Mr. Pennell, he gave me a 3-month extension on the garbage until y'all can come up with something that tries to do away with the waivers. That's just my opinion right now. So, that's where I'm at right now, is that I don't want to pay for it. And so to try to back up, I keep thinking it goes back to history. Because whenever we got 409 Elm, it was a hoarded house, had a hole in the roof, the floor was rotted through. We was able to buy it, very reasonable, and the reason we bought it was our garden was there. So I went for the administration at that time and said, got to tear down the house. There's no electric, but I want water. I don't want sewer because it's going to water my garden. And I said, there are 2 yard lights that Carolyn Chop, the lady that I bought the place from, 2 yard lights. And I said, I want the yard lights, but garbage was not discussed. I didn't sign a waiver for the garbage back then or anything. So all I have on my bill at 409 is the electric and for the yard lights, of course, the administrative fee, storm drainage fee, and then the taxes. And that's all I'm getting there. So I'll pay for that. Okay, so they were removed, as far as I know, from my bill with no waivers, and so, but to me, a precedence was set at that time, because that's when I went to Mr. Purnell, I was thinking, okay, no big deal, take it off my bill, but I have to go through the waiver system, and I don't want to go through the waiver system. I need to prove to you guys that there's nobody living in the house. And then once I prove that there shouldn't be any garbage, because garbage in and garbage out. If you don't have garbage in, nothing's going to come out. So I don't want to pay for it. Okay, it's my opinion that somehow y'all need to come up with a way to stop the waivers. From what I understand, that there's one employee that's almost full-time trying to keep up with the waivers that the city has out right now. And as a customer, again, I only want to pay for what I get. And I don't want garbage or the ambulance fee because, again, nobody lives there. And my opinion is, and I don't take it for what it's worth, is to do away with the waivers. If a person has proof that he is not using a service and to try to remove it from the bill, I would suggest it be taken before the city manager. Don't write a waiver unless, as I read in the agenda, that there are some reasons for writing waivers. But I'm coming from the point, don't even write them. Okay. So Larry was telling me that there's an employee that's spending a lot of time to do this, and I don't want to have to pay for a service that I'm not using. Thank you for listening to me. Hope I got my point across. I'm not paying for $18.83 or a $5 fine or ambulance. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? All right, we will move on then. Item number 6, the city manager report.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, item 5. Proclamation, accommodation reports and inquiries by the governing body. Item 6, sir.
We want to welcome back Matt McGuire to the Perry Police Force. It's been a while since he's been with us. We're excited to have him back. Today, on the 600 block of Jackson, they finished the last of the driveway, of the concrete driveways that were needed. Tomorrow, they will be laying the last 2 lifts of asphalt on the south half of Jackson, and then the next day they will do the north side of Jackson. So we're excited that will be done. In the city manager messenger, you'll see where we talked about meeting with property owners out at Perry Lake about the Upper Black Bear Dam project. We met with 2 of the property owners this morning. Bryce and Dixie were there as well. Correct me if you have a different opinion, but I think it went well. It was a learning experience for both sides. So I'm excited to meet with the rest of the property owners out there and move this project along. Thank you, sir. Any questions? Sorry.
Any questions for Larry? All right, thank you, council. Item number 7, chief financial officer's report.
Talked a little bit more length last meeting. I'm going to try not to tie you down as long tonight. I know we have a very long meeting. If there's something big, I promise you I would bring it up to you. But just a couple of things to note that I want you to see in the financials. Number one, if you're going to notice, cash is down year to date. But remember, we've been spending bond proceeds on these big capital projects. So don't worry about the cash being down because of that. That's not a concern. We knew we were going to spend it. We'd already borrowed those monies. And so you're really seeing it this month for the first time of big numbers because we made some big payments on the AMI. So that's number one. Number 2, sales tax for the month was down again. We're down about 2.5% again this month over what we collected last month if we compare 3 1/4 pennies to 3 1/4 pennies. If you look at it overall, yes, we collected 186,000. You're going to go, whoa, we're up 27%. Yeah, that's not really a good comparison because remember, we are still sending the money to the hospital. So that piece of it, and this check's going to be about $37,000 that's going to the hospital. A little less than our budgeted amount to get them to 500,000. So, but it's in line with, like I said, sales tax is down. So that's one of the things we're watching. If you're looking at hotel motel tax, we are minus one of our bigger payers. Don't know exactly what happened in that collection. They paid November's already, but I don't know if it's lost check in the mail or whatever. So we do have that we're looking at. So I'm not as worried about that $11,000 on hotel motel tax collection. We'll figure out where their lost check is and get that worked out with them on that part. Related to utilities, last month I mentioned that we've given out that big credit to the utility customers. You should have seen it in your fuel rate adjustment. Again, in October, there was another very big credit, about another, well, it was half of what the prior month was, but it was still $70,000 we gave back. And good news for all of the electric customers, there will be another small credit again this month. It's going down significantly. I mean, it's only about $22,000 that's getting passed through. But Autumn is, wants everybody to say thank you, Autumn, for passing through these credits. Because she always gets griped whenever the bills are high, but we never get pats on the back whenever the bills are low. So I'll give her a pat on the back. The credit is going through. Overall, credits that we will have passed through from OMPA, passed through to our customers will total almost $250,000 over the last 3 months. It's $250,000, guys. Really think about what that number is, in total electric bills. Now I know whenever you try to go out and divide that out, into each of the little pieces, it looks small, but overall, $250,000. Our electric collections will be down $250,000 because of those rebates. So that's just kind of a number that whenever your citizens are talking, say, hey, we're passing through the credits. We're making those dollars as low as we can because we build our margins based off of the wholesale price. And whenever the wholesale price goes down, our margins, our total bill goes down because we only pass through what really our net matrix is that we want to make. So that's good news. Overall, on the expenses related to PMA, there's nothing really that I have there that I tell you guys to worry about. So overall, a little concerned about the overall collections and our sales tax. It is within budget, so remember that it's within budget, but it is still on the decline, and that's something that we're going to watch. On the decline is consistent across the board with the majority of our municipalities that we've worked with. So that wasn't shocking that it was going to be down, but the overall economy and everything going on right now in Oklahoma is on a shorter stick than what it has been. So just any other questions you guys have, if there's some specific, always our door's open, give me a call, holler at me, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Russ? All right, thank you, Russ, appreciate that. Item 8, consider approval of Higley Consulting invoice in the amount of $10,321.40. Larry, I'll let you handle this.
If you subtract the plan reviews for junior high from this particular bill, which is sort of something that we don't do a lot, of this magnitude anyway, the Higley bill is within the past few months or longer. One of the things that we've also done, and I believe I've got another page back here to the words, the back, there are 2 pages of what Mr. Higley has been doing. Part of this has been working with me, a code enforcement officer, David Payne, and trying to work on some simplification of some of the projects that we've got out there that continue to give us issues, mainly manufactured modular and mobile homes. We felt that since we have a project on the horizon right now, that we felt this would be a good time to clean that up a little bit, and we'll be bringing that probably next month. We've just we've talked to the Planning Commission about that. We've tried to make things a lot simpler. So don't think this, even though it's a higher number, I don't think than we usually have. It's a higher number than we usually have. We don't think it's outrageous.
We also do intend to bring you an ordinance to review that would be fairly consistent with Mr. Higley's fees. that would be charges that would be made to the customer, to the property owner. I've done this in a couple cities. And they just work them in as a part of the development costs. And so that would be rebated. Now, they're a lot higher than what do we charge? $100? I mean, we don't charge anything that's comparable to what our costs are in those matters. And, it does take, I don't do that, but I imagine it does take time to do plan review and to do all that. So we're gonna be bringing you that ordinance. I made a note here, perhaps at the next meeting. I do have a couple other cities that do have a structured building official fee that's commensurate with the charges made. So we would be able to collect that if in fact the council wanted to pass that.
I myself thought that the bill was outrageous. So I did some investigating. I called Crystal Keller, I believe was her name. Dixie got me the name. It was here with Wallace Engineering. She come to the meeting and talked to us all about plans. And talked to her a little bit about it, and she said there was a set of engineering plans, then there would be a set of architectural plans, and she gave me the name and phone number of the architect. I want to say Tyler Sappington or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I don't have that information. So I called him, had a discussion with him about the set of plans, and originally we thought that there was a set of engineering plans and a set of architectural plans, and actually the plans we got they were all merged together. It was all put together. And so I asked him, I said, how long should it take Mr. Higley to read those plans? And he said that somewhere between 2 weeks to a month is what it would take to read that, because there's about 1,400 pages of plans and specifications in a book or something. But anyway, so you take his fees into that charge, and it's 90 hours is what it is. So I think that even though I don't like the idea of having to pay that much for reading a set of plans, I think it's within the scope of what he did. I guess maybe this would be a Bryce question that I have. When I talked to Tyler, the architect, he said everything was engineered and architected, or whatever they do, to the International Building Code. So in our code says that we have our codes match the International Building Code. So why is it that we have to spend an excessive amount of time on a project that already meets the specifications of the International Building Code?
Can I add a little bit to that before he answers?
Okay.
Because that's something that I think we've talked a little bit about in the past, and I feel personally that the architect has to put the state stamp on it, and it's, to me, that's a higher level than what we're gonna get. And nothing against Mr. Higley. I don't.
No,
I'm just.
we're on the same path.
I'm just thinking that they're held to the liability there as well, and that's kind of where we're asking for some direction here. But to me, what should happen after that state stamp gets put on with an architectural plan like that, then all we're doing is guiding the people that are building to go build it to that plan.
I had that discussion today, and I said, I don't mind him being on the project, making sure things are built right.
Yeah, but the plan itself is already, it should be, I mean, and it's got a stamp on it.
And I think that they should be held liable.
Yes.
You know, that's what
The
you're saying.
people building, yeah.
Well, I mean, the architect, and the
Yes, no,
engineer.
yeah,
If they put the stamp on it, it's their
Yes,
liability.
That's what I think too. I mean, can you put some clarification on that, Bryce?
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, does it need to be completely reviewed again? I mean, an architect or even an engineer that places their seal there is certifying that it's done in accordance with the with the standards that are in place. And the reason we have the International Building Code the same year as the state is because the state requires us to. I do think that by reviewing that, it allows him to understand more about the building, and when it's built, he's going to be doing inspections, during the inspection of it. But you do need to review plans. I'll tell you the critical part of that is, we used to just have. There were times when we didn't have a building official, and there were times we didn't have a building official that had the qualifications of this guy. And then there were times when we didn't have a plumbing official. I mean, we used Hank or Vernon, and an electric guy. We used our electric superintendent, who are charged with distribution and not necessarily the guts of a building. Where this comes in handy is ISO review. A part of ISO review, which really covers everybody as insurance, is if you don't have an effective building official, if you don't have this kind of review on these projects, they take away major points from you. Okay. Now the question is, how much do we need? And I think that's your question here. How much is too much? How much review is too much? And I suppose that's really a question that could be posed back to Mr. Higley. I do know that when he gave us his original contract, he was very concerned about liability. That was an issue that he was very concerned about. And I showed Brian Henry, our new code guy, that under the Governmental Tort Claims Act, that neither the city nor any of its employees can be sued for a negligent inspection, failure to make an inspection, making a really, really bad inspection. I mean, there's no liability under the Governmental Tort Claims Act for cities. So the issue on immunity, as long as he's considered, protected under us as a Governmental Tort Claims Act, he shouldn't be all that concerned about, making some mistake. That shouldn't be his overall deal. But in answer to your question, I don't know. I'm not a building official. How much somebody will look at my work and go, why did this take this? Well, it really did. It really did take this amount of time. What's good is after 40 years, you can do things that would take 10 hours in 1 hour. Because
We appreciate that too.
because you've got examples and you know how to do it. So I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, that certification does mean a lot. I mean, it really does. But you still ought to have some building official reviewing that. And I think one of the answers is making sure that bill is accurate, and then collecting whatever those fees are from the end user, and not placing those fees on utility customers or other people. Place it on the end user, and that's what we're going to bring to you.
Do you think that the school consulted anybody on what the fees would have been on our part towards what building that school is costing the city?
No, but I think that conversation ought to be. I think that conversation ought to be had, and I do think there's an opportunity to get this reimbursement in the inspection stage. I think that going to the school and showing them what our fee is and asking that it be applied retroactively is a reasonable thing to do. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, it's not like they pay us taxes. I mean, they do pay us utilities, but I mean, this is a separate function.
It's a building cost.
Yeah, it's a cost of building. It should be worked into that deal. Now, I'll tell you, Oklahoma City does it, Tulsa does it, Okarche does it. Okay, because they use Higley too, and that's where I'm going to take this ordinance. You're not going to pay a lot for this ordinance because I've already got it done. Because it's consistent with what Higley's fees are. We're just going to do a little find and replace there. But you're going to see that at the next meeting, and if that's something what you might want to adopt, we'll have that ready for you.
Yeah, one of the things also is, aside from the ISO review, is that with all due respect to the contractors, once this junior high is up, they leave town, and we still have our policemen, our fire, our our electric and those folks that may respond to something, they need to know where everything is, and that part of that comes from the review process.
So are you saying he's gonna write you a report? Tell you where all that's at?
No, not saying that at all, but we have.
So if he reviews it and you don't review it, how's that information gonna get to the police department?
Well, he does write a report of things he would like to see different to the contractor. That he does. And I do get those. And it's not just on this particular project, it's any project as well, whether it be residential or commercial.
The only thing I'd like to add is an example, just so that we have it, and that's a previous project that also had the certifications that we're talking about, and it was, and I don't know if you remember, I don't remember how long ago that was, but he questioned, that had the seal, a plan for the bathroom, if you guys remember, that it had to be ADA compliant. I don't know how much that cost us above and beyond, but I'm pretty certain it's not ADA compliant now, and that's how that company builds those buildings all the time. And I don't, how much of that is warranted, I guess, and that's kind of what we were talking about. But
Yeah, I came in on that particular issue
Yes.
and handled that issue. It may technically be required, and it was ADA compliant. Once you have an ADA compliant men's and women's bathroom, it was an ADA compliant bathroom for the employees, which was, just an afterthought. They could use either of the other two buildings.
Yes.
And on that, I said, I signed it and said, I'm signing off on this.
And I
So-
completely understand his
Yeah.
worry about
But he didn't want the
liability
sign off, so I signed off.
and everything else. Each one of those things costs money. and
Yeah.
We gotta,
There's a scenario that we'll be seeing next council meeting, I believe, on the manufactured homes and the modular homes, and him and I had a long discussion about that. How he said they had to be built, and they're built to the standard already, and so I think it's just it's an opportunity for the city manager and Bryce possibly to, in the council, set standards, what we think, the direction we think that we want our city to go. So, all right, council, what would you like to do with item number 8?
Well, I think given the discussion where we're at, we'll go ahead and approve it. We've got some future work to look at, but we'll go ahead. I make a motion to approve this particular invoice.
second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you, council. Item number 9, consider approval of certain items relating to the employee defined benefit plan. Item A, consider approval of ordinance number 2019-25, amending the employee retirement system defined benefit plan for the city of Perry, Oklahoma by adopting a revised and restated retirement plan, providing retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of Perry, Oklahoma, providing for the purpose and organization, providing for definition, providing for eligibility and participation, providing for non-alienation of benefits, providing for employer and employee contributions, providing for accounting, allocations, and valuations, providing benefits, providing for required notices, providing for amendments and terminations, providing for transfer to and from other plans, creating a retirement committee, and providing for powers, duties, and the rights of retirement committee, providing for payment of certain obligations, providing for duration and payment of expenses, providing for effective date, providing for vesting schedules, providing for a fund of financing the system to be pooled with other incorporated cities, towns, and their agencies and instrumentals for purposes of administration, maintaining and investment as part of all contributions under the system to Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for management and investments, providing for repealer, severability, adoption. Those amendments mandate by the Internal Revenue Code and declaring an emergency. This should only have taken a half hour, consider what we got coming in a minute. You wanna do these separately?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to talk about this, sir?
You know, every year we have amendments to our Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund Ordinance and into the master agreement. We've provided you a listing written by Maccabee Tapp of what those are. You know, the one that we outlined, the one that's major, is if you steal from the city, you're going to lose your pension, which is, and of course that's required from the state, and that's a new state law. And so that's the way it is. Any fraud, anything like that, you're going to lose your pension. But there are provisions here about transfers to other municipalities, transfer to other employers, designation of beneficiaries. There's no provision for participant loans. I mean, it details out what it is, and they're trying to keep those up with the IRS standards for pensions. So if you want our pension to remain compliant with not only IRS rules and regs, but the new state law on not being able to steal from the city, you would want to adopt this ordinance.
What would you like to do, council, with item A?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-25.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Caldern.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Motion on emergency?
No,
Oh, not yet?
we don't have enough people. We have to have 7.
Oh, was it 7? I thought it was 6. My bad.
But thank you, Derek, I appreciate that. Item B.
Glorious, let's thank you too.
Item B, approval of Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund Master Defined Benefit Plan, Joinder Agreement, and Defined Benefit Master Plan.
What we have is a defined benefit plan. That's what kind of plan we have. And of course, the defined benefit joiner plan agreement sets out how that plan works. And they make amendments to that, which are consistent with the amendments made or dictated by the IRS and or state law. So the two work together. You have to amend the joinder agreement and defined benefit plan and approve the ordinance. So I would recommend we approve this.
Item B, council.
I'll make a motion to approve the joinder agreement and the defined benefit master plan.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Caldern.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you, council. Item 10, consider approval of change order number 2 with Walter Morgan's change in the amount of $4,600 to install a motor control panel, revisions to prevent both pumps from running at the speed that might damage the force main on the wastewater treatment plant influent lift station renovation project. Mr. Pennell?
Dr. Riley has made a visit here to look at not only this project, but also phase 4, and has reviewed this, and thinks it's time for us to take this action. So we're getting close to the end of that project, thankfully.
Any questions? Okay.
Just an oversight. Is that all? Oversight on this one?
No, oh, well, that's a good question. I would say probably the answer is yes, you know, because if it was designed the way it was designed without those changes in the motor control panel, and they could have adversely affected the force main, they're recommending that now. It would seem to me that that was probably an oversight, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that, I'm not really up on exactly what parts, but there were two parts that were from different manufacturers, and they did that interface correctly. So this is a fix, if you will.
Okay.
What do you wanna do, council?
Motion to approve change order number 002 with Walters Morgan, in the amount of $4,600.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item number 11, consider approval of application for payment number 3 with Walter Morgan's changed in the amount of $115,477.38 on the wastewater lift station, effluent lift station renovation project. This is just, paying our bills for the work they've done.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item 12, approval of invoice in the amount of $16,825.51 from Utility Technology Services for additional meters and related equipment related to the citywide meter replacement project. Larry, have you talked to Brian Wheatley about this? What's going on here?
I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. There were some electric meters which we did not purchase at the very beginning, and we realized that this was larger than what we normally have, so this is to take care of those situations.
Didn't we just sell some back?
These are large. These are like number 4s, something like this. It's not your regular residential meter.
I was thought we bought some extra, actually.
Oh.
Okay,
I think we've done,
bought and sold?
I think we have.
Something like that, yeah.
Do you know anything about this? I mean,
You all are correct. The regular size the regular residential size meters, we did have more and we did sell some back. But these are larger meters. These are different meters that sometimes, for instance, my house, we don't even have the meter size in yet to go in my house because we have that big shop and barns and all of that. And those meters are not even, but they're part of this order. Because we ended up with locations that needed different sizes that weren't in the original bid. So,
And how many is this?
I'll have to look at those invoices to tell you exactly.
12.
Well, 12 electric.
Okay, so it's the full 12.
Well, that's not accurate either.
Well,
There's multiple pages of
Yeah,
it.
It says 165 meters right here. Is that what that is?
No, that's 16S.
Oh,
That's the size.
16S. Okay, if it says 12, that's for 30, that's $3,700.
there's,
And then there's 4 over there. That's a cable.
17.
It's a mess.
yes,
A mess
that's
of
why I
meters.
asked, like, how many exactly are there?
22.
But did we, is that, we bought the original amount and then we sold some back, but it seemed like to me we bought some extras.
But we do have extras in stock.
Okay.
They're just not the right size?
Correct. Because we have the standard sizes in stock.
Okay.
Because there's no point in keeping these sizes when there's not a lot of cost.
So is this the exact number that we'll need? for the larger ones, or is this a surplus?
I believe he's gonna have like just 2 for research, just a few surplus, just for, you know, in case it would come up.
Right.
All right, thank you, for the whole staff for trying to clarify this for us. Item 12, council.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve. We've got to get the project completed. We have, Miss Dixie doesn't even have there's got to be some other people that don't have it because of the size of the meter, so I don't think they have a lot of choice about that.
She may be about electricity to her house. for all
Maybe
we
so,
know.
I hope not.
Do we have a second? I'm sorry, did someone say second?
Said second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kolar,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Consider approval of invoice of CEC Corporation in the amount of $2,000 for grant administration work performed in connection with the rehabilitation of the fuel system and the design only for improvement to the airport drainage project. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. It's for, is it for writing a grant administration fees?
And then I will turn that in and it'll get reimbursed.
Okay.
And this is for our 24/7 fuel system.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kolar,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item 14, discussion of solid waste waiver issues.
Bill, could I
You
start?
bet you can.
We're not expecting any final decisions here. That's why we didn't give you a sample ordinance or a sample policy. What we wanted to do is kind of set out what the issue is and see what you think of that. And so that's normally less than what we normally do. We normally bring you something and say, you know, this is what we think you should do. And we apologize for that, but I didn't know what you would think that we should do, you know. I will tell you that the first thing I did on this was I called and spoke to Margaret Love, who represents, you know, a whole bunch of municipalities, and asked her what I was interested in is kind of what this gentleman talked about. I mean, do you think that customers should be able to pick and choose their utilities? I want this, but I don't want this. I want this, but I don't want this, you know, kind of the a la carte basis. And of course, there's reasons to like that, because that's, you know, freedom. You know, I mean, I ought to be able to only get what I want. And if we had a mandatory ambulance fee here, which is authorized by state law, you know, you'd say, well, I don't want that. Well, you know, I mean, are you gonna make it mandatory or not?
So we can opt out of the ambulance fee.
Yeah, but that's just an example.
Okay, all
It's
right.
just an example.
I thought you were talking about
No,
ours.
I'm not talking about ours,
All right.
because ours is not
Okay,
mandatory.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right. But you know, with respect to water, we think that if water comes by your house, that you ought to connect to it. I mean, we got a lot of cost in water, and the water goes to help pay for the fire departments, and it helps to pay for lots of stuff. So, I mean, what if you have a well in your backyard? You go, I don't want to connect. I want to drink well water. In fact, you have an apartment complex. There's a bunch of people in there. But your water has nitrates, but you don't care. I mean, I want to be able to serve my folks well water. I've had that case before, about 25 years ago. In all the apartment complexes that are right next to Oakwood Mall. The guy that owns those, he's the water supplier. Water does have nitrates, and I want to buy your water. You know, I don't want to connect. And then of course there's sewer. You know, I mean, we have sewer running by people. I don't want to connect to your sewer. I want to have my own system in the backyard. You know, I ought to be able to pick. Well, part of the thing is in living in a municipality, It's different than living out in the county. You know, you give up a few of those rights. You know, the combination of water, sewer, maybe trash, and electric. It's of course all up to you. I'm not telling you what to think. You tell me what you want. You know, but all those come together to form a total fee, a total budget, which we then allocate and use to pay for what we pay for. Now, the issue here is we've been doing these. Oh, and by the way, what Margaret said is I never heard of waivers. I mean, in all my city, I've just never heard of it. I mean, I don't know anybody that gives waivers. Well, they do in Perry. You know, and that's not good or bad. You know, I mean, it may be thoughtful. We do have allowances for apartment complexes in what, water? Do we discount? We discount that. I mean, we have a vacancy allowance. You know, that's built into rates. So we try to get there. I mean, we offer sewer. In the summer is based on the winter usage. Right? Yes.
Yes.
Autumn? Yes.
No, she said
There's
no,
a
that's
different
the
rate,
authority.
there's a different summer rate.
It's a different summary, but the reason is that we're thinking about the fact that people are using water to fill their pools and to sprinkle the yards. So that's, you know, we've got lots of different rates. So now what about garbage? Well, there's all kinds of folks that would prefer not to pay. Because it's $18 and some cents, so they prefer not to pay. So you've got your examples of your person that has a business and has their home, and you know, they can always take their garbage from their business to their home, or their garbage from their home to their business. So I don't want garbage, you know. And then you've got the folks on the square that use their building for storage. They don't generate a piece of garbage. I don't want garbage. Now, the garbage fees that are collected do a lot more than just pick up your garbage. I mean, they also help run. The only reason that you have a convenience center, which is very unique. I mean, you can go out there and dump for free, you know, and then that's very unique. When I go to the Enid one, you know, I have to pay. And by the way, I don't pay for garbage there, so I have to haul my own garbage, and the reason is because I have a bridge that the garbage trucks don't want to go across. Okay, so I have to haul my own, and they don't want to come get it either because they don't want to lose a truck. So it's not a matter of having a waiver. I don't have one, but literally everyone else, I mean, unless they have a bridge, don't have garbage. So you've got the folks that are downtown that don't want to pay garbage, and there's folks with multiple businesses that, you know, I pay here and I don't want to pay here, you know. And then we have, like this gentleman's example, he's got a building next to him. Certainly if it's a lot, you shouldn't pay garbage, okay? And you shouldn't pay drainage either, so I want to look at that. I mean, based on our drainage fee, you need to have some kind of roof or a macadam
There is a
huh?
house on the
There's a house there.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
house in the front.
Well, if there's a house,
Three lots.
I'm okay with
the
the
drainage.
drainage
Okay.
and the administrative fee.
Right, okay.
But you do
But-
have three lots,
I do have three, well,
one vacant, one and two with houses.
Okay,
Right.
well, I mean, it's important to look at those and see, you know, how it is. But of course, you know, from Autumn's standpoint, if we exempt the reason we had exemptions is that they come back up and are reviewed, okay? So this house that's only used for certain purposes now is being rented out, okay? But he's throwing the garbage, you know, in his can, he's getting out of not paying that fee. That's kind of why they had the waivers, so that it would come back and be reviewed, because if not, I mean, it's gonna go on forever and ever and ever. So that's, you know, another one of the reasons. And as I said, the garbage fees go to more than just, you know, picking up that garbage. You know, there's the extra fee in picking up all the cans around the square, picking up the parks, doing the convenience center, and all that money comes together theoretically in the big pot and pays for all of it, including brush removal, you know, all of those things. So it's not a, it's not an easy decision, or maybe it is. You just say, kind of keep doing what you're doing, or how many do you have right now? Why is it such a big deal right now, this waiver thing? If it's not that big, why are we talking about it? I think you said we have 15 or 30 now or so.
Yeah, there was quite a few that just expired. So we have 15 now, but it's anywhere between 15 and 30 at one time.
Okay,
How many permanent do you have?
Huh?
How many permanent do you have? There's also permanent waivers.
permanent
correct?
waivers?
Yeah, there's a lot of permanent waivers. But most of those are justified as far as empty lot or things like that, but some of them are maybe not necessarily, like we talked about storage units. We're not real sure if those should be waived, or, people take their stuff out of the storage unit and they wanna throw it away, should they have garbage service or not, I don't know, but the storage units are currently waived.
So, it's not a, I suppose we could fashion something. We could fashion exactly kind of what we've done. If it's an empty lot, then it doesn't create any garbage. That seems to be quite easy, If it's a, but if it's got a separate identifiable address, should we attach a garbage fee? Or if the home is no longer vacant, should we take that fee away? If the people are snowbirds, as they go to Florida for 4 months, should we remove that charge? Our costs remain consistent. And of course, the other piece of this is there's no coordination between the landfill, Davis, and City Hall. I'm not saying no, but there's not a lot, because we pay a flat fee, okay? And let's say you're Brahms, and you call up and you say, I want 3 times a week pickup. But, Davis's trucks are gonna go out there every day. He doesn't know that. He really doesn't know what the thing is. He does know that when they're too full, he better dump them, so he's going to run by there, and if there's some that's full, he's going to, dump those. So there's not, because we pay a flat fee. So there's not a lot of coordination between, what somebody is necessarily paying and what Davis is doing. He is responsible for taking care of all the garbage and all of the stuff every day, and getting it out where he needs to get it. So I don't know. Larry inherited this waiver thing, and he doesn't want to keep signing them if we don't have a policy, which makes sense to me. So I suppose what we could do is we could make up what we have done and bring that to you, or we could let you talk and tell me what you want, which is just perfect, because I don't have a dog in this fight, and although I do think that there are reasons why why people shouldn't pick and choose their utilities that they choose to take. The other thought, and this is what Margaret said, because I was kind of arguing the other side to this. She said this really is a police power. It's protecting the neighbors, protecting the city from on a health, safety, welfare concern. The fact that you want garbage picked up and you want it out of the house, because if it's not out of the house, it can really cause an issue. So,
Can I make one more statement?
yeah.
From an administrative point, it's really becomes a nightmare if you have a structure there and you don't have a waiver, because when so-and-so waives their garbage, and then they're saying, oh, well, this house is gonna remain empty, or whatever is gonna do with this, then, and then a year later, they decide, oh wait, I'm gonna rent that out. and then they rent it out, they don't say, hey, add that to my bill. They don't do that. And so, anyways, the expiring, having the waivers expire if there's a structure on the property, is really to help the city keep on track with what's supposed to be charged and what's not supposed to be charged. And, the other thing was, that I thought of was, I can't think of it, I lost it, but, it's,
Couldn't people come in and sign a waiver? And I'm not talking about you, Gary, at all, but I mean, people could come in and sign a waiver, and they go ahead and put the trash out, we're gonna pick it up anyway.
Absolutely, and
Because-
and the garbage won't know.
They won't
They don't
Yeah,
know.
they won't know if it's a waiver, it's not a waiver.
that's what I was
or
gonna
anything.
say,
So they
is
pick
that
up the garbage
just
that's
like
out there.
sewer, if you're tapped into the sewer, it's your choice on whether or not you're gonna use that sewer or not. That service is provided to you, it's there for you to use. Now, whether you flush the toilet or not, that's totally up to you. But the service is there to you, we have no way of monitoring that, we have no meter on that. We have no way of knowing if you're gonna, if you don't want garbage there, if you're gonna start using that garbage or not. We have no way of tracking that, and it kind of becomes an administrative nightmare on who's using what and who's not using what, when we don't have waivers and we have like structures there that, where the purpose of that structure could change at any day.
So if I have a, if I come in and ask for a waiver at a certain address, is there cross-referencing done initially to say, okay, there's a structure there? Or do you send people out to observe that? In other words, how much manpower is being done, even on the front side, let alone on the back side of like every year? How you gave examples of how it could change. There could be a structure that's vacant, but next year it's, in other words, if I come in and tell you, I don't want water, I need a waiver because it's vacant, do you go out and actually look at that?
I do not,
I didn't mean you personally.
The
I
internet
meant
is
city
big.
employees. Do we put city manpower out to confirm all of these different scenarios that are going on in people's lives at these particular addresses?
I don't. I get the waiver and I review the address. I look it up online. We have where we like Google Earth. It's kind of like Google Earth. You can look at a picture of the address. You can see what kind of structure's there. And I a lot of times take a picture of it, a screenshot of it, and I'll print it out. I'll look at the meter history to see if there's any usage at that location. Just kind of assess the situation. And so when I bring it to Larry, I can tell him, okay, this is the structure, this is what's going on here, this is my recommendation on whether I feel like you should waive this or not. And then he waives it, and then I take it back to my office. And I do all that in the computer, and then I make a copy of that, and I send a letter to the property owner so that they have records for themselves of when it's going to expire. Because our waivers do say, once it expires, you will start being billed for this charge. And a lot of times, once they start being billed, they come back in and they sign another one,
So they come back another time, you have to do it again?
yeah, I have to do it again when
Okay,
it expires.
that's my question really.
Yeah.
And originally there were permanent waivers, then there were year waivers, and lately we've been going to 6-month waivers. There's a line there for them to tell exactly why, I inherited this house, my mom passed, and so we're a little lenient on that, but if they say storage, I usually deny it, especially if it's downtown, because that's not within the zoning, that's not within code. So, correct?
Do you have a lot of residents that are picking and choosing? Like, obviously he has a situation where he's not living in that house, so he probably doesn't want any of the utilities versus somebody that just wants lights, electricity, but they don't want the garbage. Do we have a lot
Right
that
now
are
we
trying to
have
pick and choose?
35, and then there's a number of folks that don't come in at all because they're somewhere prior to me, they were given a permanent waiver, correct me if I'm wrong. So we don't, if they have a permanent waiver, they're not coming in at all.
Right.
So some of those though, of the 35, they're just avoiding garbage and yet they're taking the other utilities?
Do we have any waivers for anything other than garbage?
No,
Okay.
we don't. If someone wants to make their water inactive, they can do that. But they don't sign a waiver.
Yeah.
They just say, hey, I wanna make my service inactive, which we can monitor, I mean, we have meter, we turn it off at the meter, and so that service is not provided to you at your convenience whenever you turn the faucet on. We would have to come back out and literally turn that on for you to make it,
You can turn those meters off from the office, can you not?
not the water.
The water meter you can, okay.
Bill,
Sir?
can I,
Yes, go ahead.
on the house at 411, because the people didn't pay their electric bill or any bill, during that 2 weeks, they would go out and turn the water back on. Well, they did that, I saw them, they did that several times. Finally, the city, you guys, came and put a lock on that meter, and that lock is still on that meter. So my contention was, if you don't have water, you don't have any service, and I don't have on 411. The only thing we have that I'm disagreeing with is the garbage part. Because no one lives there.
Okay, you have 409, right?
409,
411,
411,
413,
431.
431, okay, that's your resident, right?
That's my resident.
Okay, the other two lots you're talking about, do they have, both have houses on them or just one of them?
Just one.
Okay.
The one where Carolyn Chop lived, it was,
Yeah, what address
It was
has,
ordered.
address has a house on it?
411.
411, okay. All right, I follow you.
And we put electric to that, and so we have electric to that house. But we're not using water, or the sewer, or the gas, because no one's living there. And to Jeannie and I's idea, no one's gonna live there. So eventually, you know, if the house falls down, then we'll have to tear it down. But I guess, like I said at the beginning, we're wanting to control who lives
No,
next door.
I get that.
That's another point is that, I've told Larry, is that I feel like when we have houses or buildings that are sitting there vacant, and we've had people who have signed waivers for 10 years on a vacant house, I feel like the city's saying, okay, that's okay. Go ahead and have your empty house that's falling down and that's gonna be condemned, the city's probably gonna have to pay for it. I feel like at some point that waiver needs to be done, like, we'll waive it, we may waive it for you, once, but, I mean, I just feel like it needs to not be waived for like 10 years.
And that's one reason why we went to 6-month waivers, or that timely,
Yeah.
for especially houses that maybe are up for sale, or they've been inherited, mom passed or something like that. Decide what you're gonna do with it, and if I give you a year or 2 or 3 or permanent, you're not as motivated. So from our standpoint, that's the position that we're taking.
Doesn't that mean that we need other ordinance, I mean, if it's gonna be a vacant home that's gonna sit there and rot until you do something else with it, I would think that that's a different problem than us having an $18 monthly garbage fee that's gonna keep them from doing that.
And that's where code comes in,
Right, which is,
which is a longer
I mean, I
period
guess
of
you're gonna
time.
waive that for a while for them, and they make that decision, but that's not really what's gonna keep them from.
Some cities require, if you don't have electric, if you don't have water, if you don't have sewer, then your house is dilapidated.
Well,
I mean,
I have a question.
that's what they consider.
I can think of a couple of metal buildings, and yes, I own one, but I'm not talking about that one. A couple of metal buildings downtown where I think the people just park a truck inside, maybe have a little bit of equipment in there, and that's where they keep it. Well, they have at least electricity, so they have lights. So that's a situation where it's not a dilapidated house or dilapidated structure, it's just, I don't know what you call it. If you call it a storage building, that paints a different picture, but it's a building that they use, but not to live in and not to store stuff.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is residing in a property without electric, water, and sewer.
Okay.
And they can make it, I've seen ordinances that makes that a criminal offense. We have never gone that far here. But the truth is you can find provisions in those life safety codes and existing building code. You can find a provision that will provide that in those thicker codes. So these cities have actual an ordinance in their municipal code book, and it all depends. I mean, you can find whatever you want to find to enforce. I mean, it's all there. But you're right. I mean, it is a different issue. And, you know, the issue is, you know, do you want properties improved and turned into something which is useful?
I completely understand Gary's issue. And I really don't, at this time, I'm gonna have to think about it. I haven't formed an opinion.
One thing we
But-
don't do is share residentially. Okay, like in this case, you know, you can share, two commercial consumers, you know, can share a dumpster, right?
Yeah, like around the
In-
square, but-
Yeah, around the square. So, you know, in this case, you could have a share. I mean, if we had the rate, it would be a share between the two, and the rate would be the one rate, you know? And then all we'd have to do that is to say share, and that it can only be shared between the same property owner.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Shared between the same, cured, right? Not an issue there. And can continue, or that is an issue? How's that an issue?
It's kind of an administrative nightmare also, because you have this property over here and you have this property over here, and then they're on two separate bills. Well, this one gets finalized, and 5 years from now, I'm not gonna remember that this person over here is paying this lesser amount. This person over here is no longer either paying garbage or they're paying the higher amount, but this person over here is still paying the lesser amount because there's nothing that's gonna pop up and tell me, hey, start charging so-and-so over here for this larger amount. It's just, you know, around the square, I have a map and I have.
But if it's the same, owner, would that be an issue? I'm not talking about
Yeah.
Bob and his next door neighbor
Yes, it would
Jane.
still be the same thing, because they're
Okay.
all on one account or two separate accounts.
Because if, I mean, Bryce has two houses right next door to each other, wherever, he has one garbage fee. He sells me one house, I'm gonna come in and ask for utilities on that house.
I was even thinking that on renters too. I mean, if the use, like if he started renting his house out,
Yeah.
that renter's probably gonna come in and get utilities.
Yeah, and
So
then
we'd
pop,
charge,
there.
we'd charge the full price at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it would be a different, yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is the same person. That would cure this issue, and without even, you know, touching the waiver issue, which to me seems like an easy solution, but.
well, what I was gonna say a while ago was that we have services in our town, and we're talking about garbage mainly, so we'll just talk about garbage, okay? Davis Sanitation charges us X amount of dollars a year to pick up garbage, okay? They provide the convenience center out there, no additional fees. So if you start handing out waivers, we got 2,500 meters, is that right, somewhere in that area? Okay, so we start handing out meters, you go from 2,500 people sharing in that cost to 2,200 people sharing in that cost. You know, so then you go, man, we gotta raise the garbage rates because we got all these, you know, we're not cost sharing it. So we gotta be careful about that.
That's why at the university, all people pay the same fees. You can't opt out of a Calvin Center fee because you don't use the Calvin Center. Everybody cost shares that. it's the same concept.
Yep, exactly.
Everybody's sharing together, because as Bryce said, you're living in a municipality, and with that, where you attend a university, with that, you kind of lose some of that flexibility.
But I do like the idea that you just shared with us, the sharing addresses, sharing a dumpster, or sharing.
Well, we could certainly do that with, I think if you own both properties, I mean, that would be a fairly easy one. I mean, you get a big dumpster, and if it's not rented to a third party, I mean, that could solve this individual case. But we have folks coming in for waivers, right?
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you, well, we introduced it. We didn't expect to come up with really any solutions today, and we put it on here to introduce it because Larry wanted to get it out there. And
Yeah, this is an unwritten policy. I mean, it's not an ordinance form, resolution form, it's not in a policy form. So we're just, we're kind of doing it on our own, and I'm really uncomfortable with that. So what I'd like is to have an ordinance that tells us what to do, and when to do it, and how to do it, so to speak. Because I know Autumn comes in every so often, and I say, more waivers, you know? And usually, unless it's just totally ridiculous, I approve those for another 6 months. I'd like to see something written, so it gives us guidelines, so that we know that we're doing things right. We're doing the way the council wants, and we're doing it in an equitable way for our residents.
so why don't you give us a chance to bring something back? We did want to introduce this subject. I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like, but we'll talk about it again, if that's okay with everyone.
Any further discussion?
If there is on the waiver, I mean, shouldn't there be something too that says, okay, I'm waiving this one, but at least it'd be on her documents of, yes, I'm still getting utilities, or I'm still, I mean, check which ones you also are getting. It would be nice if you're just waiving garbage and you're telling us, okay, I'm still getting utilities, or I'm still getting these others, that may put it at the top of our list of something that we need to keep a watch on, versus this one's vacant, I'm not using it, I'm trying to sell it, you know, my mom passed away type of deal. But it'd be nice on the waivers that maybe it's not just an exclusion, but you also have to tell us what you are getting.
Item 15.
Mayor, I think this is a great time to note that Bryce must not have had a concert tonight when we looked at the length of this agenda. I mean, Lord knows that if he would have had someplace to go, all this stuff wouldn't have been on here.
Thank you, Russ. No comment.
Hey, and he hasn't taken control of the meeting yet either.
And he hasn't run the meeting yet. Sorry.
Sorry,
We need
Bryce.
some levity.
Item 15, consider approval of resolution 2019-12 for the city council of the city of Perry, Oklahoma, authorizing the establishing the city of Perry Christmas lighting electric rebate program, providing for the public purpose, providing for the amount and limitation on the rebate as provided in Exhibit A. Council, this is something we do every year. We give a $25 rebate for the electric usage if someone wants to sign up, put Christmas lights on their house. Sign up sheet in City Hall has to be signed up by December 13th. Your utility, or your lights, I'm sorry, have to be displayed no later than December 16th. It'll be judged, and Exchange Bank and Trust Company will award the prize to the winner.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Derek.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Goldar.
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Blind.
Yes.
Stroke.
Yes, thank you. Item number 16, we'll have to table this. It requires all members to be present before we can pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second it?
Motion. It was motion to table.
Are you gonna
A
second?
second.
Oh, I didn't hear you over.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope, we're good.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. Item 17, consider approval of City 2020 regular meeting schedule. It's the same schedule as we had in the PMA earlier.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Man, we got them live now. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Ahern.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Item 18, consider approval of the city's 2020 holiday schedule.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ahern.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Item 19, consider approval of the Carnegie Library Board 2020 regular meeting schedule.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ahern.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you, council. Now we go into the meat here. Item 20, consider approval of certain ordinances which provide reasonable zoning and land use restrictions for marijuana industry in Perry. There's two parts, A and B. Item A, ordinance number 2019-19 of the City Council of the City of Perry of Oklahoma adopting a new Article 5 to be entitled Retail Medical Marijuana Dispensary, Medical Marijuana Growers, Medical Marijuana Processors, and Chapter 9 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018, providing for the adoption of Section 9-501 entitled Definitions, providing for the adoption of Section 9-502 entitled Medical Marijuana Dispensaries, provided for the adoption of Section 9-503 entitled Conditions of Operation, providing for the adoption of Section 9-504 entitled Medical Marijuana Grower Facilities, providing for the adoption of Section 9-505 entitled Medical Marijuana Processor Facilities, provided for the adoption of Section 9-505 entitled Permit Inspection and Other Requirements, providing for the repealer, savings, codification, severability, penalty, and declaring emergency. What do y'all think about that? Bryce?
Well, the voters approved medical marijuana by approving initiative question 788. And, but that left a lot of questions for municipalities. And one of the questions was, do municipalities have the power to exercise reasonable zoning and land use restrictions on the marijuana industry? Now, the first city attorney conference that I went to, we had all the folks from Colorado come down. They'd gone through it several years before, and they said, yes, you can do it. Do it. Well, I'm a little bit conservative, and some city attorneys went ahead and did it, and most of them that did it got sued, and some of them won on the western side of the state, and a lot of them lost on the eastern side of the state, and it went on up to the Supreme Court, and it hasn't really gotten accepted by the Supreme Court, and there's no ruling yet. But in the meantime, the legislature convened, and they approved Senate Bill 1030, which said just that municipalities can exercise land use and zoning regulations over the marijuana industry, but they provided some limitations. And one of the good things that they did is what was the typical restriction on alcohol or on mixed beverage establishments and retail liquor package stores. What they do each year now is they're going to send a letter to the city saying this guy has a license, does he have proper zoning, or is he grandfathered, and is he following your regulations? I mean, you're either gonna say yes or no. Up till this day, we said yes, because we have no regulations, right? Because you haven't adopted any. But, you know, next year, whenever those licenses come due, they're gonna ask us, are they? And, you know, the existing ones are gonna have to have come under these regulations. Now, certainly, if they were there before this ordinance was approved, we don't put them back through this zoning process. Okay, and the zoning process is really the next ordinance. This one is the regulation ordinance. So that's how the, you know, the current ones will be handled. However, their operations do have to be in accordance with this. Now, what have we done here? You know, one of the things is, and we talked to the planning commission about this, and this was all preceded by notice to the public. There wasn't a whole lot of interest in it, I don't think, at the planning commission meeting. There's certainly no interest in it today. We don't have anyone here. In other cities where we've done it, I mean, you have the marijuana retailers there, and you know they were there listening to what you're doing. In fact, in Cherokee, we helped negotiate part of it right during the meeting. Kind of, well, what do you think about this? And we kind of we got it done right there in the meeting. But there doesn't appear to be much interest. But let's just say what happened in that other Maroon city. What they did is they allowed growers to be in the downtown business area, and there are now 9 grower permits in that other Maroon city for grower license. They're going to reconvert buildings in the downtown area, so there will be some converted buildings down there. But lo and behold, people are smelling it. I mean, and they're getting headaches and having, you know, high times with it next door. And I mean that. I mean, they really are. So the whole issue is, you know, where do you want to put some of this stuff is? Because there is some noxious parts about it. And so what we're not suggesting is that growers are downtown. Okay? Although some folks think that maybe growers should be downtown, because maybe that would reconvert some of the buildings from storage, and we could have some utility sales. So that is one of the things that you've got to think about in doing that. The other Maroon towns said it, but they are getting some of the ill effects of it. But like I said, 9 grower licenses in the downtown other Maroon town. That's kind of an amazing statistic for me. When we originally did this, though, what we did is we said, okay, it's permitted by right in C3, general business, okay? And then we talked about it with the planning commission, and we thought, well, maybe it shouldn't be by right in any district. Maybe it should be by use by review. So that's what we did. Right now, if you want a marijuana dispensary, you can have it in C2, C3, or C4, but not as a permitted use. You know, you gotta file an application, you gotta notify the folks within 300 feet. It may be subject to the site plan, you have to come in here, and we can consider other people's thoughts about it. So that's how it's been amended. With respect to the grower facilities, we're talking about AG agriculture, I light industrial. In either of those, once again, not permitted by right, but permitted by use by review process. But in I2, permitted by right. I mean, I2 is the least restrictive district. It still has to be subject to a site plan, but you know, it's your least restrictive district. It's your district where you put, heck, you can put junkyards, you know, there, although that has to be by use by review there, but you know, the absolute noxious things. So those can be there in I2, and I'll tell you, our whole industrial park is I2. That's what that's now for processors, I2 only. I mean, you got to be I2. There's some flammable elements there, and I do have it by right there. But, you know, there's all kinds of building inspections. There's the site plan ordinance that applies to all industrial uses. So there'll be some regulation there. We got some fees here, $600 for your dispensary, $1,500 for grower, $1,500 for processing. Quite frankly, those are, very fair fees because there's a whole lot of money to be made in this. And I think we've recognized that, maybe not in this community, but in other of my communities, these grower facilities are pulling a lot of electricity, a whole lot of electricity. In fact, one that wanted to open here, as a processor, we couldn't even serve. It was so much power. I mean, we would have had to had an additional substation built, and quite frankly, hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million of upgrade to get.
Was that for a processor or a grower?
That's for processing, yeah. And we just didn't have it, and of course, we need to take care of our existing businesses and make sure that we have additional power there. But at some point, we are gonna talk about electric needs, expanding our electric needs for existing folks, but it just wasn't something that OMPA would have to invest money into, that they were really willing to do and understand it, because right now everyone's saying, how is this gonna shake out? How is this really gonna shake out? Is Nabisco gonna own all of these eventually, or, somebody, Pfizer, or, one of the big drug companies, or because it is going to happen. There's so much of this that's going on. There's gonna be a shakeout, and what you don't wanna do is you don't wanna put in all that infrastructure, and then not have a client. But so that's really what this ordinance is. I would tell you, it's reasonable. It's not overly restrictive. I haven't made it overly restrictive, and that's quite frankly because I think we all agreed to do this in a nice, reasonable way, and we'll see what the impact is, and we can always add. So this particular ordinance really sets out the regulations. But it also sets out the zoning, where you can have that zoning. And the next ordinance is just amendments to the zoning ordinance, which provide for those uses by review and provide the procedure under which we'll allow it. This has been reviewed by planning. Planning approved both of them.
Right.
David, do you have any comments?
No, we've communicated during the writing of this, and I and the planning commission have looked at it and agreed.
So that's really where we are, bringing that recommendation to you, and saying that we recommend you adopt it.
Is there any discussion or any questions for Bryce?
On the dispensaries, so I mean, they could pretty much still open anywhere commercial as long as they had, as long as they sent out their letters and everything was approved and there was.
But it has to come in front of you. But I would say that this ordinance is not meant to restrict them. There's sales tax that's paid by way of that. And as long as the building codes are met, as long as if it's a new building, site plan and the building codes for having it are met and the state regulations are met, it would be your decision. But one thing about the state law, it does say that cities can't draft an ordinance that will not allow dispensaries. You cannot keep dispensaries out of your community. So, yeah, I think that this one allows folks to apply, to come in, and it's going to ultimately be your decision. You're going to get the recommendation of the planning commission. As long as I'm here, I'm going to suggest that we don't disallow them as long as they come in within all the regulations that we have, and there's not some major reason not to have it. Dispensaries are important. Now, I'll tell you, other folks have more restrictive ordinances, some of which I don't think are correct. This one, like the state law, provides 1,000 feet from public and private schools K through 12, okay? Some cities provide that it can't be within 1,000 foot of another dispensary, or 1,000 foot of a park, or 1,000 foot of a Sonic, because of course, they'll go there to eat their munchies, or 1,000 foot, I mean, they literally have 1,000 foot of everything. And they make it such that you can't locate one there, because it's just, the city is so big, and if you take the 1,000 foot everywhere, and I think they are really subject to getting sued and losing, and some of those cases are the ones that are still up. My thought, and my thought really comes from in talking to Matt Love with OMAG, is that all these laws follow something. Originally, we had prohibition, and then we had non-intoxicating beverage, right? Just had to be under 3 point. If it was under 3 point, it was good. We didn't even call it beer, we called it non-intoxicating beverage. So the state put that out. You could have taverns with serving non-intoxicating beverage, and all the municipalities came in and said, we don't want that. I mean, there were still prohibitions there, and we're going to make this rule, that rule, this rule, that rule. Well, there was a whole plethora of cases that went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, 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 no to every one of them. Okay, this is state law. So then you had, then you got past that. Then you had liquor by the drink, and you had, you had that come in where you could vote it countywide. And there were many cities that if it got voted countywide, the city didn't want it. And they put in regulations. We don't want this. And those went up to the Supreme Court. The court said no. So I think the same thing follows on this marijuana legislation that has been going on in the state for 100 years. And that is, if municipalities put something that doesn't square up with law, for instance, a distance requirement, why did they say 1,000 feet from a school? If folks want to add church, they really do, they want to add church. But like for liquor establishment, it's 300 feet from a school or a church. The church has to be primarily used for worship. And it's the way the bird flies, and it's from the closest property line to the closest property line. Well, you try to do any more than that, it's going to get overturned. So this ordinance has been drafted not written in a way to pick up litigation, but I think fair for the public. So and fair for the business owners.
So if you have someone that wants to grow in residential area, they could come before the planning commission?
No, they can't. Residential is residential, except for private. I mean, you can have up to 12. You can have up to 12 plants. Yeah, they're not going to come. They're not going to come before anything. If they have the license, they can grow. And this ordinance does not regulate that. That's something else. Some ordinances regulate the individual.
Is it really 12 plants?
Yeah, I think it's 12 mature plants. Yes, but
12 mature plants.
It's 12 mature plants. Yeah, it's 12 mature plants. But this ordinance does not regulate people, okay? And I just think that that's a little much, although I've seen ordinances which regulate people. And I think those are the ones that are absolutely being hit, what you can do. And yet, there's issues there. I mean, are people seeing it? Where are they growing it?
We've had some questions about if the homeowner has a medical marijuana license and they want to grow there over the threshold that is statutory, can they?
No. No,
That's
the
what
answer
we-
to that, the answer to that's no. And they can't under state law either. I mean, they can't. That's what a license holder is allowed to do. Otherwise, they've got to get a grow license. And then that would come under whatever our regulation is. And that's why we're suggesting that we at least put some regulations in.
So one other, just hypothetical,
Sure.
in the way that this is written. If, just along your other maroon example, if it got brought before us, say that it was allowed for one to be downtown at one point, and then whatever council's on, they decide they don't want 9 of them, like you mentioned, so they turn down the rest. What kind of litigation or what kind of issues would that bring upon the council?
Well, first of all, they wouldn't be, in answer to your question, under this ordinance, they wouldn't be allowed to put it in downtown because the grow license only goes to A, I, and I2.
Sure.
If in
But-
fact you had one that allowed that, you know, they would make the equal protection argument, you know, I mean, on the same kind of building in the same kind of area and you granted one there, what's wrong with mine? And, you know, all those arguments are subject to, I mean, that's their side of it. However, what we do know is that the state has said that we are able to pass zoning and planning regulations, and that's just sometimes the way the cookie crumbles, you know. I had a mayor 35 years ago. A guy came and wanted to put an apartment complex. And the Enid City Council turned it down. And 2 years later, the head realtor came and gave the same pitch for the same apartment complex, and it was approved. And the mayor, who's a very honest guy and later became a representative, state representative, said, "Isn't it funny how we make decisions based on who brings them?" And I was just sitting there going, "Oh, God, that was the wrong thing to say," but it was an honest thing to say, you know. I would just say that you as a city council act in a legislative capacity, and the law from the Oklahoma Supreme Court says that the court should not substitute their decision for that of a legislature. I mean, if there was a lawsuit, you know, that would be one of my propositions. You should not substitute your decision for that of the city council acting as a legislature. So, you know, that's their side, and I'm not saying that it couldn't be effective, but I do think that the state has authorized to exercise reasonable zoning and land use restrictions, and I think this, as we present it, is very reasonable.
I can remember when the casino was coming to town. You know, they had a right to come to that piece of property because it was tribal ground. There was councilmen on the council at that time that come up with the idea, we'll stop them by not rezoning that land around it to commercial. They can't have a parking lot. But all around that area is some commercial land. So you can go ahead and do it, but we're probably gonna get sued, you know? So it'd be kind of almost the same scenario, you know?
Trying to figure out the best way to say this, but based on what you've said though, and I don't know if this is subject to the same laws or if it could be done the same way, but you know, a lot of municipalities, let's say liquor license, they will only issue so many. Could this work the same way? Or is it not allowed to work that way? Because then you could actually establish a number from the start.
I've never thought of it in that way, but all the law says, we're talking about dispensaries pretty much.
Right, so if you said,
Yeah.
hey, we're only gonna issue 5 licenses, and you did that from the start, then maybe you wouldn't be open to lawsuits later.
Nobody could certainly argue if you had 5 dispensaries that you're keeping dispensaries out, right? And that's what the law says that you can't do. You know, you can't have zoning restrictions such that you're banning dispensaries. I would like, if you wanted to look at something like that, I would like to run that through a few traps. There's folks that have specialized in, you know, in reviewing these laws, and I don't know that I have an opinion on that right now. I would like to seek some other advice if that's something that you'd like to do.
I'm not afraid to be the one to say, I want them here, but at the same time, I don't want them to overrun, you know? So, you know, that's why I didn't know if there was a way of allowing it and maybe taking care of all that before it got to that point by only allowing so many licenses. And maybe, according to law, if you allowed so many licenses, then you weren't saying that you didn't allow them.
Well, if
Or
you
that
allowed so many licenses, you're not violating the law.
Right.
The question is, you know, they go get permitted at the state, they go get licensed at the state, but now they actually call us if you have some regulations in place and say, is this a correct location? And that's why I think it's important to get some regulations in place. You know, that old law only became effective on August 29th. So we're not that far. We actually put that up, you know, we put the notice in the paper, we had the planning commission meeting in maybe September. They continued it once to another meeting, and then we're bringing it to you. So, you know, we're not really late since the legislation became effective. But, you know, I would, if you like the ordinance, I would recommend passing it, getting something in place, okay? And then if you wanted that question answered, we could always come back and amend it. But however you want to do it is the way I want to do it. We've waited a long time to pass something. And what that would be is just a section which would be added to the, for instance, the dispensaries, saying there should be no more than X number of permits, you know, issued.
Okay, I got a couple more questions. Sorry.
No.
On top of that, I did notice on some of your codes or regulations, I could understand the need for a ventilation system on the grow facilities because that's a massive operation. But is that something on the dispensaries? Is that something that's required statewide, or that's usually required?
It's something that they don't have any problem doing because it's just a carbon-based deal. It's to take out a part of the pungent smell, because there is a pungent smell. I have somebody I know that has done one, and he's done it double to what the standards are, and he just did that in order to, I'll tell you, whatever you use, you can still detect the smell. I mean, you cannot make it, I mean, unless you're building a vacuum sealed room, the smell will escape. So don't think that the ordinance that says there shall be no, you know, odors out, there's gonna be some, okay? It just needs to be, there needs to be an attempt to do it. I don't think that, that you can keep it out.
Okay, last one. The dispensaries that are existing now, will they be grandfathered in as they are?
They're grandfathered into their location.
Okay.
Okay, I believe, and I'll talk to Larry about this, you know, I think they're probably good for their license term, you know, when their term comes up. You know, right now, they're gonna have to start coming into, you know, compliance. But I think that what's going to dictate that is when their license is renewed, you know, because they will ask us that question. Or else perhaps we can go to them and say, you know, we've passed this regulation, it's time for you to come into compliance. I didn't address that. The ordinance, if passed, will be in effect. It will not change. I mean, they're gonna be grandfathered in their location. There's no issue there. We can't do anything there. I think I would like to see those fees paid for 2020.
So the only thing that may change for them is whatever codes may change.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, we're not moving them out of where they're, if they're lawfully in existence at the time of passage of this, then they're grandfathered. Now, at that point, they're a non-conforming use, and they come under the terms of our ordinances on non-conforming use. So for instance, their ability to grow it, to enlarge it, or their ability to, if it burned down, to rebuild it. We have provisions on non-conforming uses, and if they're, and if it comes under that provision and it's not covered, they have to bring it all back up. But I've never seen that done the whole time I've been here. It can happen, but it's just theoretical.
Okay.
It's correct in the ordinance, I don't know if this pertains, but on A, the last section for adoption is, I believe, should be 9-506.
Yeah, it says 505 twice.
Yeah, it is
Oh,
correct.
in the deal, it's correct in
It
the
is
ordinance.
correct in the
Yeah,
ordinance, so I don't.
it's correct in the ordinance. Yeah, I don't even know how that happened, because you take it and move it right on over, but you are correct. But
Any
the
further
ordinance-
discussion? What would you like to do with
I'll make a
item?
motion to approve ordinance number 2019-19. Thank you, Bryce, and thank you, Dave, and all the planning commission for kind of getting the ball rolling.
Would I have a second? I'll second it. Roll call, please.
Kolar,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, sorry.
Ahern,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. We do not have the right number of council people here to declare the emergency. But I do want to point out that when we have items that we do want to declare emergency, that it's very pertinent that we try to get as many council people here as we can, because now there's a cost to the city to publish this information. All right, item number B, or letter B. I asked our council this evening to look this up in the charter, and it says that this must be read into record, but it doesn't say who gets to read it. So, council, would you please read this evening?
Yes, I will. I'm prepared.
He's got his little spacer.
Turnabout is fair play.
I think we've had this happen before.
Yeah, once before. Gordon did.
Gordon did it to us.
Ordinance number 2019-20 of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 12 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018 supplement by the amendment of the uses by review provisions under Section 12-282B, namely by the addition of subsection 3, providing that medical marijuana dispensaries may be permitted in a C2 general commercial district after an approved use by review hearing as provided by Section 12-287B, C, D, E, F, and G, use by review, and after approval of a site plan review hearing as provided by Section 12-286, if required, and in strict accordance with the applicable provisions of Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Perry Municipal Code 2008 supplement. By the amendment of the uses by review provisions under Section 12-283B, namely by the addition of subsection 3, providing that medical marijuana dispensaries may be permitted in C3 Commercial Business District after an approved use by review hearing as provided by Section 12-287B, C, D, E, F, and G, use by review, and after approval of the site plan review hearing as provided by Section 12-286 if required, and in strict accordance with the applicable provisions of Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018 supplement, by the amendment of the uses by review provision under Section 12-284E, namely by the addition of the medical marijuana dispensary use, providing that medical marijuana dispensaries may be permitted in the C4 Planned Commercial District after an approved use by review hearing as provided in Section 12-87B, C, D, E, F, and G, use by review, and after approval of the site plan review hearing as provided by Section 12-286, if required, and in strict accordance with the applicable provisions of Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018 supplement. by the amendment of the uses by review provision under section 12-252, namely by the addition of subsection 3, providing that medical marijuana grower facility may be permitted in an AG agricultural district after an approved use by review hearing is provided by section 12-287B, C, D, E, F, G, paren, use by review, and paren, and in strict accordance with the applicable provisions of Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018 supplement, by the amendment of the uses by review provisions under section 12-289, namely by the addition of subsection 3C, providing that medical marijuana grower facility may be permitted in an I-1 industrial paren light and paren district after an approved use by review hearing is provided by sections 12-287B, C, D, E, F, and G, paren, use by review, and paren, and after approval of the site plan review hearing as provided by section 12-286 if required, and in strict accordance with the applicable provisions of section 5 of chapter 9 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018, by the addition of a new permitted use to section 12-290.2 entitled Uses Permitted, providing that medical marijuana grower facilities are permitted use in an I-2 heavy industrial district, by the addition of a new permitted use to section 12-290.2 entitled Uses Permitted, providing that medical marijuana processor facilities are permitted uses in an I-2 heavy industrial district, providing for repealers, savings, codification, severability, penalty, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, sir.
The bad part is that wasn't punishment, because Bryce likes to talk anyway,
I
right?
know. But I did learn something from that.
He likes free speech though.
Yeah, I did learn something from that. What's paren?
Parentheses.
Yeah.
Paren, yeah.
So I've done it wrong all this time?
What, how?
I've never said that word.
Oh, I just do it. I did, because when you're dictating something to somebody, if they're taking down shorthand, you just.
Oh, okay.
And Gordon used to skip the parentheses anyway. I'm pretty certain.
Well, that's just like, surely we can shorten these things up, can't we?
You know, one of the things about having a title like this, you know, it really doesn't come into play when you pass the emergency clause, okay? But when you don't pass the emergency clause, you're telling the public exactly what you're doing. And that title becomes the title in the newspaper. So there's nobody, you don't have to read the whole ordinance, you can get a copy of it if you want to. But the reason that you have this, and this is the same thing in the Oklahoma legislature and of course in the federal government, is when this gets published, you're saying exactly what you're doing, which is important, particularly if you're just publishing by title. So it's not as important when you don't pass the emergency and you're publishing the whole thing. So.
I think Earl Hicks is probably the only one in the city of Perry can understand what that says anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, we've already talked about this. I mean, all this does is do what I told you in the first part. It just makes the changes to the zoning ordinance, which we talked about in the last item. So if you were for that, you would be for this because it just implements the zoning regulation.
Motion to approve?
And this did go to the planning commission. They did recommend approval. Okay.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Kohler.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Eifert.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you, Bryce. I appreciate your help. We like to have fun, but I do appreciate you. Item 21, consider filing form, oh, wait a minute. We're not gonna pass the emergency. I wanted to make sure that it was public, okay, for that last item. 21, consider filing form to be excluded from the National Prescription Opioid Litigation.
This is a class action suit. There's a bunch of, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a bunch of lawyers that are bringing opioid litigation. If you file the form, you get excluded. There's no reason to be excluded. There may be some money here. We may need to, if we're not excluded, we're in it, we may need to provide some advice or some information to them. But I'm recommending that we take no action. And therefore, we're in the
class action.
We're in the class action.
Any discussion on that item, council?
No, I'm really proud of you taking that long one on 21, read that.
I had to, yeah. I just realized what she said, 21, oh, that's it. I'm gonna get the next one too, Jamie.
Oh, okay, good.
Item number 22, Any new business needs to come before the council this evening? Item 23,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you, council. It was a great evening.
Sheila, anyway.
Color,
Yes.
Philbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you.